Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Right Call. It's been too long. Today I have my co-star, Mark Allman. How you doing?
I'm doing amazing.
I mean, when aren't you doing amazing, you know?
With football again on tomorrow, week 2, I'm ready to roll.
I know, it's going to be great. We already have 1 week behind us, and we've had some surprise performances. Deebo Samuel, Corey Davis, Joe Mixon. We've had some crazy performances, but we've also had some bad performances. So we're going to talk about what we like and what to watch for at each position. So we're going to start with quarterback. What do you think?
Well, Cole, I got to start with Aaron Rodgers. And as those who have listened to the show before know, I detest the guy, and I'm always piling on him. But I just want to make a big point this week. I never thought week 2, a home game against the Detroit Lions, I would say is a big game for Aaron Rodgers. But it is.
Yes.
There's several people in the Green Bay area already calling for Jordan Love. And let me be clear. It's not just his horrific performance against New Orleans, it's his body language, and it's his lack of leadership as usual and the way he models himself on the field. So, Cole, that's where I want to start is I think Aaron Rodgers needs to have, not just Green Bay's going to win, and by the way, in Vegas, everybody's betting on Green Bay. The line has jumped like 2 points. So what are your thoughts? I don't think it's an automatic, frankly.
So I agree with the Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it's time to call for Jordan Love. I think that's too much. I think that Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He had an off week. I think that if he does this for the next few weeks, then it might be time for Jordan Love, and then he might be done. But I think we still need to give him a chance. It was 1 week.
Just one last thing before you tell me your quarterback. I just want to tell our viewers that if the Lions somehow miraculously beat Green Bay next week, I'm going to get a Quintez Cephas jersey to celebrate the Lions' victory.
All right, we will quote you on that.
Okay.
So my quarterback pick of the week is Jared Goff, and I think that this is another big week for Jared Goff. I mean, when he was in Los Angeles, he could really never prove that he was a stud fantasy quarterback. But this year, from what we saw week 1, he can be that, and he has more weapons around him now. So I think that, I mean, he doesn't have more weapons than he did when he was in LA, but Jared Goff has been known to like those tight ends, and now that he has Hawkstar, I think that he could have a huge game and a huge season. So watch for him this year.
Well, first let me just say that, I talk to Cole all the time about not doing drugs, and I'm worried I'm going to need to give him a drug test because he just upped the ante for Jared Goff, who the Rams couldn't have been happier to give away. Let's pump the brakes on Jared Goff. The only reason Goff had a big game statistically is because the 49ers quit at halftime, and they went to prevent the entire second half, hence 20 targets from Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. So let's pump the brakes on Jared Goff. He'll still be there to make some dumb passes and dumb interceptions. Of course, Detroit will probably be trailing by so many, he'll put up a decent game after all. But, Cole, I want to bring up a couple of guys at quarterback that I want to know what your thoughts are. First of all, Lamar Jackson, to me, this game on Sunday night against Kansas City, they lost Gus Edwards. The guy Tyson Williams stepped in. Latavius Murray stepped in. But I got to tell you, he fumbled 3 times against the Raiders.
Latavius Murray?
No, Lamar Jackson. He fumbled 3 times and lost 2 of them.
Wow, okay.
And so for Lamar Jackson, this is an enormous game against the Chiefs in Baltimore. And the Ravens don't want to start 0-2, and I'm going to call it right now. I'm not sure the Ravens are going to win, but I'm going to say they're going to cover, and they're about a 3-point underdog. So I think Lamar Jackson's going to put up a great performance against the Chiefs.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think Lamar Jackson is risky. He's always been a risky fantasy player. I mean, that first year that everyone had him, he was a good fan. I mean, he was a great fantasy player. He's MVP of the league, but last year he was on and off. This year so far, he's on and off. The people valuing him as like maybe QB 8 or 9 in fantasy when he was valued as QB 2 going to the league last year. Maybe even QB 1 in some leagues. So I like him, but he's a big risk. But moving on to running backs.
No, wait, I'm not done.
You're not done.
I have one more quarterback I want to talk about.
Oh, boy. All right, go ahead.
I have one more.
All right.
I want to talk about horrific Matt Ryan.
It's not horrific.
Now, let me just say with Matt Ryan, if you think it's absurd for people to be calling for Jordan Love in Green Bay, I never thought this sentence would ever come out of my mouth. I think it may be time to call for Josh Rosen in Atlanta. Matt Ryan is so horrible and overrated. Julio Jones bailed him out so much over the course of his career. Now he has Calvin Ridley, and they go get Kyle Pitts because the Falcons apparently don't invest in defense. It's only offensive players. But, Cole, I got to tell you, Matt Ryan for the rest of the year is just going to be a bad fantasy quarterback to the point where I think he could be in the 20 to 25 range in fantasy quarterbacks.
That could be true. I totally could see that. And I think it all depends on how Pitts evolves. I think that if Pitts can evolve to be a stud what are you smiling about?
I think he's going to be the Pitts.
Okay. If he can be you threw off my train of thought.
That's what I tried to do.
So if Pitts can become a stud quarterback target, I think that Ryan could be good this year. I think then he could be in the 10 to 15 range. But I also think that if he doesn't, then I think 20 to 25 range is even a bit generous, to be honest.
All right, you can go on to running backs now.
All right, you just wanted to let that off your chest?
I did.
All right, so moving on to running backs, my pick of the week is Najee Harris. He's amazing.
Oh, God. You just traded for him in fantasy, so now you're all over Najee Harris.
He has an amazing matchup, projected for a point less than Dalvin Cook. He's playing Las Vegas. All the odds are in his favor. It's looking that he's going to have a great week this week, and he's a top 5 running back in fantasy this week, and maybe the rest of the season in my mind.
Well, he's got an easy matchup at home against Las Vegas' defense.
Exactly, so he's a good week one.
He may be good. I happen to think overall Najee Harris is a little overrated for the season.
I think you're a little overrated for the season.
Well, that could be. The guy, speaking of overrated, I want to bring up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You talk about a guy that people keep waiting for to take that next step. Once again, bad week one. I don't know what it is. Miles Sanders, on the other hand, had a good week one. But I got to tell you, I don't know what to think. I just don't think the Chiefs are great for running backs in fantasy football. I just think it's more that than anything else.
I mean, ever since the Jamal Charles era, where he put up 5 touchdowns, 20 rushing yards, and 245 receiving yards in one game. Besides Jamal Charles, nothing has been the same there in the backfield. I mean, in 2015 and 2016, they had Niall Davis. They thought they had something there.
Wow. That's great preparation.
Thank you.
There.
I mean, they thought they had Sharkhandrick West. They thought they had Damian Williams, but they really didn't have any of these guys that could really step up to be the RB1. I think they were hoping that Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be that, and I think he could be that. But there's really no room for a dominant running game in that Chiefs offense. I mean, they already have Mahomes can run, Mahomes can pass. They have Kelsey, the best tight end, Hill, the best wide receiver in the league. So I just think it's a really clumped up.
I'm going to need to test you on something now.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so since you're quoting a whole litany of Chiefs running backs, do you know who the Nigerian Nightmare was? If you get this,
the Nigerian Nightmare. Spencer Ware?
No, it's not. Does that sound like a Nigerian name?
I don't know. I did.
I mean, I'd rather you say Akeem Olajuwon for that matter.
Okay, so can you give me the time period that he played?
Yeah, I think it was in the 90s. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, then I don't know, but I know current, but I don't know.
His name was Christian Okoye.
Christian Okoye.
He was a stud running back for the Chiefs, and Barry Word also. Okay, anyways, moving on. Cole, I just want to call out 2 running backs before we finish this. Number 1, I want to talk about Corduro Patterson. This is a guy who no one's ever really trusted in fantasy because you never know what his role is going to be. He doesn't know how to run patterns. But now he's a running back and wide receiver in fantasy. The Falcons played him on about 25 offensive snaps this last week. But based on the Falcons' lack of creativity on offense and desperation to make things happen, Cordell Patterson's a great stash on your bench to see if he does kind of improve over the season. And the other guy I want to bring up is Ezekiel Elliott. Talk about a guy that's got pressure on him if you have him in fantasy this week. Horrible week 1, 11 carries for 33 yards, two receptions for 6. This week, big game, he goes against the Chargers, who have a pretty good defense. Cole, what happens in week 2 if Ezekiel Elliott has another kind of off week? Is it time to start worrying for Zeke Elliott owners?
I think it's time to start worrying about Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott if they have the bad next 2 weeks. I think Ezekiel Elliott, if he's a bad this week, it's time to worry. If Saquon Barkley is a bad next week after 10 days of rest, I think then it's time to worry more for Saquon than for Zeke. I still think Zeke's going to even if he's not an RB1, I still think he's going to be a solid upside RB2 that's getting 10 to 15, maybe 12 to 17 every single game. So I like Ezekiel Elliott, but I'm on the edge about him this year. I don't know.
All right. All right, so what do we got for receivers?
Yeah. I'm not done.
You're not done running?
I'm not done.
All right.
All right, so I just have one more player to go over, and his name is Daryl Henderson Jr. Daryl Henderson Jr.
Darrell, isn't it?
Whatever.
Can you get his name right?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay. Darrell Henderson Jr.
You wouldn't call Sony Michel Sonny Michel,
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Well, the only reason I know how to say Sony is because of the computer company.
Okay,
so,
well, that's impressive.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
But Daryl Henderson is a number one back. I mean, in fantasy,
can you call him Darrell though?
Darrell Henderson is an RB2 in fantasy, and I mean, he's a high-end RB2. He has RB1 potential this year, and don't be surprised when Cam Akers come back if there's a committee and Daryl Henderson takes the dominant amount of rushes in that committee. Like, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. So I think Darrell Henderson is someone to definitely look out for this year, maybe be on your trade radar, but I love him a lot.
He'll be hurt by week 4.
He won't not be hurt. But, okay, who do they have as their backup behind Darrell Henderson?
The TV and computer company, Sony Michel.
Oh, God, he's
terrible. And they have the Funk Master, the rookie.
Both are atrocious.
Oh, don't be ragging on Sony.
Sony is atrocious. There's a reason the Pats never used him. He's named after a computer company that can't even beat out Apple. Like, it's terrible.
All right, so we can't give any more time on this show to Darrell Henderson. So can we go on at receivers?
Fine, we'll move on to receiver. I'll start it off with Allen Robinson. I mean, Allen Robinson is a pretty locked-in, high-end wide receiver too. I mean, he's a 12 to 17 guy, and I'm hearing a lot of good reports about him when Justin Fields gets in there. Justin Fields in college loved those slot wide receivers, and Allen Robinson can play in the slot and on the outside. So if Allen Robinson can be a versatile receiver, he no doubt has wide receiver 1 upside this year. No doubt in my mind, top 10 possibly. So
is he going to be throwing himself the passes?
Justin Fields, excuse me?
Well, we don't know how good Justin Fields is going to do instantly.
Justin Fields should have been the number 2 pick over Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson blows.
Well, that may be true. That may be true.
Zach Wilson is like a backup QB.
All right, I have 2 receivers that I want to call out that not only bore me to death, but there's so much hype about these 2 guys after week 1, and I'm annoyed. One of them is Christian Kirk. Now, Christian Kirk did this last year. He would have a few really good weeks, but they have D-Hop, they have Rondale Moore, the rookie who they're high on, they have A.J. Green.
Excuse me, I recall you saying when we were going over pickups for our team that...
Yeah, I didn't want to spend a lot on him.
You go, hey, I'm interested in Christian Kirk.
Interested, but not going to spend a lot on him because there's too many guys there. So Christian Kirk is an inconsistent. He will have high ceiling weeks, but he'll also have weeks where he does virtually nothing. So I don't like Christian Kirk. And then Tim Patrick. Oh, for the love of God, can we stop talking about Tim Patrick? Denver's got KJ Hamler. They got Cortland Sutton. They've got Noah Fant. They've got that Alberto Iguabuike guy.
Albert, get it right, please.
Albert. So I'm just saying that Tim, there's so many mouths to feed in Denver. And frankly, as Cortland Sutton becomes healthier as the season wears on, he's going to be more of a target than any of those guys. So I just want to say that I'm not super high on Christian Kirk. I'm not super high on Tim Patrick. And lastly, Cole, I've been talking about it all year, is Bryan Edwards on the Raiders. I've been following him for the preseason for 2 years. He emerged in the fourth quarter in OT against the Ravens and made huge plays in that game. Big, tall, strapping young man. Watch out for Bryan Edwards.
All right. Well, I have one more player to go over, and I think this guy hasn't gotten the respect that he deserves because of his lackluster week 1, but Mike Evans is the guy I'm talking about. Mike Evans.
Are you joking?
I'm not joking. You better listen to me, mister.
Okay.
Chris Godwin is overrated.
Oh, my God.
He's overrated.
You watch the Buccaneers?
Antonio Brown is overrated.
Really?
Chris Godwin is the number 2 there.
The only thing
AB is the number 3. AB is the number 3 there. I will mute you. AB is the number 3 there. Mike Evans is the number 1. Mike Evans is going to get the primary targets, and he's going to get the long ball receptions. Mike Evans is a beast. Mike Evans is a wide receiver 1 when he's healthy and when he's getting the targets. So I would not sleep on him. Buy him when he's low. Buy him right now. As soon as this podcast comes out, go get him.
Okay. So I just want to say I can't waste any airtime on Mike Evans.
No. Please share your opinion. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I feel like I've never been a big fan of Mike Evans, and in all fairness, he's been a very consistent producer statistically. I'll give him that. But I just think Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Gronk, I feel like it's so many mouths to feed. I don't think Mike Evans is going to have the kind of year he's had the last few years. I don't think it'll be bad. If you can sell him right now to get maximum value, I would, but I wouldn't go buy Mike Evans. I wouldn't.
If you can buy him low, I'd buy Mike Evans. If you have him. No, if you want him, I'd buy him. But
I guess.
Okay, so let's move on to tight end.
I have one more thing. I have a request for the New Orleans Saints. It's not even a full thing. I just have a request for the New Orleans Saints. Last week, Deontay Harris caught a touchdown.
All right.
And Juwan Johnson caught a touchdown. I am requesting
Juju?
the best name in football to catch a touchdown this week, Lil Jordan Humphrey. Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Is that his actual name?
That's his actual name.
Oh, boy.
And that's right there with HaHa Clinton Dix. So I'm just calling for Lil Jordan Humphrey to catch a touchdown. That's all.
Wasn't there a baseball player back in the 80s named Razor Shines?
Yeah, there was. Wow, what a great call.
Thank you. I mean,
Montreal Expo.
That's the right call.
Love it. That is the right call. That was impressive. Still loving your Jamal Charles recall.
Well,
right
thank
there.
you. I mean, I think we may need to dedicate a whole podcast to great sports names because that may be something we need to do.
But can I just ask you one more time what the Rams running back's name is?
Darrell Henderson.
Okay, go ahead.
So let's move on to tight ends.
Okay.
I mean, I only have one pick this week, and it is Dan Arnold. Dan Arnold. You heard me. You heard me right. Dan Arnold is going to get the touches this week.
Really?
Dan Arnold is a beast.
I don't even think Dan Arnold believes he's going to get touches this week.
Dan Arnold is going to get the looks. We're not playing a good team. Kyler Murray likes his tight ends. He's going to get the looks.
I don't even think Dan Arnold's with Arizona anymore.
Then I'm talking about the wrong person.
Yeah, no, he's not even on Arizona anymore. Arizona, who is so lacking tight ends, they didn't even want to hold on to him. He's not even. Well, let me switch gears.
You go ahead. I'll figure out who I wanted to talk about.
That's fine. Let's talk about David Najoku for a minute. Now,
Okay.
David Najoku, who last year was a big disappointment for Cleveland. He was on the trade block. This year had a great preseason, led the Browns receivers in week 1. If David Najoku is on your waiver wire, grab him because he either plays a big role in Cleveland's offense this year or he gets traded because there's even talk he's on the trade block again. Second one is I want to talk about Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst fell off everybody's radar because of Kyle Pitts being drafted on Atlanta, but the Falcons' offensive coordinator has said they're going to go with a 2 tight end set for most of the year, so I still think Hayden Hurst can be an effective tight end if you need depth in tight end. And lastly, I do want to talk about one other thing, Cole, with tight ends. His name isn't as good as Lil Jordan Humphrey, but can we start rooting for Jacksonville's tight end Chris Manhertz? I mean, what a great name, Manhertz.
What about James O'Shaughnessy?
Yeah, well, that's not as good as Manhertz.
It's a great name.
Not as good as Manhertz.
I mean, it sounds great, but
okay. So, and the other thing is, I was out in Las Vegas and previously, and the one thing about everybody's down on the Patriots tight ends. They don't like Hunter Henry. They don't like Jonnu Smith. I don't know if it's because they think they're going to take touches away from each other, but I got to tell you, those two guys are solid. If they stay healthy, that's the biggest key for both those guys. I like them both the rest of the way.
Okay, so I thought of the person I wanted to talk about, and I actually forgot who I was going to talk about, so I just thought of a random tight end.
I'm glad you're accountable and you're honest with her.
I just thought about a random tight end. Okay. So Dan Arnold is not the guy that I like this week.
Okay,
he's
good.
probably going to suck. I don't even know what team he's on.
Okay, great.
But the guy I like this week is Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper was not great last year. I mean, he was más o menos last week.
Throwing a little Spanish in there?
I threw a little Spanish in there.
Love it.
But I think he could, last week and last year he wasn't great, but I think Austin Hooper, he was great when he was on the Falcons 2 years ago. He was a top 5 tight end when he was on the Falcons 2 years ago. And I think that he could go back to that. I mean, I don't know about him this week, but in the future, I'd buy low on him right now too. I think that when Odell comes back, Austin Hooper is going to get more and more and more targets. So
you know who I think may have more points this week than Austin Hooper?
Who?
Mr. Hooper from Sesame Street. I actually think Mr. Hooper from Sesame Street may have more points. I cannot believe you've taken airtime in this show to talk about either Dan Arnold or Austin Hooper.
You talked about Brian Edwards.
Oh, stud.
Okay.
He's a stud.
He's not a stud.
All right, who are we picking for our top upset picks this week?
I mean, You're not going to be happy about this, but the Lions are going to beat the Green Bay Packers, and you'll watch.
In Green Bay?
In Green Bay.
So you're not just saying they're going to cover. You're saying they're going to win outright?
Yep. You're underestimating Jared Goff and sexy TJ Hawkinson. You're underestimating him.
I am saying my 3 biggest picks of the week is I think Miami's going to upset Buffalo. Josh Allen has owned the Dolphins the last few years, and I think Miami showed pulling out that win against the Patriots next week. I think Miami's going to take a step and win that home game. I think the Rams are going to roll in Indianapolis. Matthew Stafford must feel like he's died and gone to heaven to get out of that outhouse called the Detroit Lions, and that offense is good. Sean McVay is such a great coach. Love the Rams to roll in Indy. And my final pick is since he's going to win in Chicago, honestly, Joe Burrow is so good. People get off the bandwagon because he got hurt last year, and everybody wants to talk about, the new stuff, Trevor Lawrence and all these guys. Joe Burrow's phenomenal. He was so great against Minnesota last week, and he's going to continue to get better each game this season. So I like the Bengals in Chicago.
All right. Well, that was a really good episode. I really enjoyed that, arguing with you about Dan Arnold and Austin Hooper and
the Rams running back.
And the Rams running back that I will not say his name. And this was a great episode. So thank you guys for joining us on the right call, and good luck in your fantasy matchups this week. And Marcus, if you're watching this, you're going to lose too.